Good evening. I'd like to call to order the special board meeting for November the 17th, 2020. At this time, I would like to have a motion for approval of the agenda.
Madam Vice Chair,
Ms. Mackey.
I move to approve the agenda for the November 17th, 2020 special call board meeting of the Richland 2 School Board of Trustees.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, Dr. Caution Parker. Any discussion? Yes, Ms. Agostini.
I'm sorry, I'm just testing my microphone now. I just want to comment, I've got a concern about the legislative discussion that there's no action request on that. I find it difficult for somebody to go and represent us on these different issues if there is no vote to be taken.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Agostini, for your comments. We'll get to that when we get to that section. At this time, any other discussion? Hearing none, let's take the vote. Motion carries 6-1. Moving on to item 3.0, nomination of the chairman of the Board of Trustees. Before we do that, I'd like to take a moment of privilege for just a second to say something. I would like to say that in order for us to have consistency, I know that for the general public, I need to make something a little clear. When we do board member chairs elections tonight, we're only talking about the current elected person to only serve for the next couple of months until June. Once June comes, we will also re-elect new officers. So we're talking about a span of a couple of months. And I'd like to say that for the sake of consistency for those few couple of months, I'd like to, if I was considered to be nominated for the chair, I would like to recuse myself for this time for the sake of consistency, because I think we do not need to move several positions with only a few months to go. So I will hold down, with my colleagues' permission, I will hold down the vice chair until maybe there's an opportunity, if my colleagues see fit, for me to be the chair at a later date. But I think to move two different positions, and we're only talking about a few months, would not be advisable in the midst of the pandemic. I think we need to have a little consistency. Let's hold it where it is. We only have one position to elect for. And then, of course, I want to say this, I do want to be able to lead this body at a later date. But I think for the sake of the district and the children that we're serving right now, consistency is what we need. Having said that, are there any nominations? I'm sorry, Dr. Davis, this is your part.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. To the members, to our board, thank you for being here this afternoon for the special call board meeting in relations to us having some discussions for a legislative meeting in December. And in addition to that, the first order of business is the election of a chair. As you all remember, we lost our chair after the last elections. And according to our board policy BD, the organization of the board, the officers of the board are the chairman, vice chairman, and secretary. The officers are elected and sworn in annually at the last meeting of the board in June, and at which the last order of business will be the election of officers. The elections will be conducted by the superintendent, who will preside and act as temporary chair at the meeting until the chairman is elected. The superintendent will take nominations for each office, beginning with chairman. Officers will be elected by a majority vote of the board using paper ballots unless there is a single nominee, in which the case with show of hands will be used. Elected officers will take their position immediately upon completion of the election. Each officer will serve a one-year term. No officer may succeed him/herself in the same position more than once. Therefore, each officer will be eligible for only 2 successive terms in the same office, but may again be elected to the same office after the break in service. The vacancies in the above-mentioned offices will be filled as outlined in law. And so at this time, right now, we have only one vacancy, and that is the vacancy for chair. And so we will take nominations for the floor, and as acting chair until the chair is elected, I'll ask that the nominations be open at this time. May I receive any nominations for the position of chair from the floor?
Dr. Davis?
Yes.
I'd like to nominate James Manning as board chair for the remainder of the 2021 year.
We have a nomination for Mr. James Manning as chair for the remainder of the 2021 academic school year until the June elections. Mr. Manning, do you accept the nomination?
I do.
Are there any other nominations from the floor? Are there any other nominations from the floor? Are there any other nominations from the floor? Seeing that there are no additional nominations for the floor, we move that the nominations be closed at this time. And now we may cast our votes for Mr. James Manning for the chair for the remainder of the 2021 academic school year.
Excuse me, do we not need a second on that motion?
You can do a second. It's not required according to Robert's Rules of Order. Nominations do not have to be second, but it's not out of order for members to second a nomination to signal their endorsement, but it's not required.
And there's no discussion either?
Not when there's a single nomination. This is a nomination.
We do take a vote,
Yes, it's now time to vote.
so then you can have discussions after the vote.
No discussion after the vote for the position of for a nomination for positions.
Okay, I'm a little confused. There's no discussion before the vote and there's no discussion after the vote?
No, ma'am,
Now,
not
I can
according to
recall-
Robert Rules of Order for a nomination, for the
Yeah,
position of a
I recall
nomination.
last time there was a discussion. So do you have that, where we can see that Robert Rules of Order? Because it's my understanding that you can always have a discussion. Any vote, you can have a discussion. I could be wrong, but if we can have someone pull that up for verification.
With Dr. Franklin is looking through her Robert
Okay,
Rules of Order at this
thank you,
time.
Dr. Franklin.
Dr. Franklin, you can feel free to read it from the podium if you like. I do not fancy myself as a Robert's Rules of Order expert, so I do my own research, and if you find something different, I stand corrected. If not, we'll move forward.
That would help. That addresses nominations from the floor. So the chair calls for nominations from the floor. by saying, for example, nominations are now in order for the office of, in this case, board chairman. Any member may then call out a nomination. I nominate XYZ. The chair then announces that that person is nominated. When it appears that everyone who wishes to have made a nomination, the chair says, are there any further nominations? And pauses. If not, there are no additional nominations. The chair says nominations are closed. And that's the end of the nominating process. And then for elections, typically, the actual election is done by ballot, or you can do it by voice vote, which you all did, but it doesn't mention anything about discussion. This is a nomination and not a motion. So it doesn't, Robert's Rules of Order doesn't address any discussion.
Thank you, Dr. Franklin. Dr. Kosh-Parker?
I just have a question. When we do this, like back in June, first meeting in July, do we have discussions after we make nominations and after we decide who's going to, we vote and all that? We don't have a discussion.
I don't recall that, but that
I don't
doesn't mean
recall.
that we did not.
Yeah.
But I did research the Robert's Rules of Order in preparation for this board meeting, and therefore I'm conducting myself according to those orders. But if someone finds something in opposition of my interpretation of the Robert's Rules of Order, of course, I'm open, the board is, of course, open to hear those interpretations that are differently. But based on the research that we've done in administration as preparation for this, there is no discussion for the motion made for the appointment or voting of a position on the board for chair.
Madam Vice Chair, I'd like to go ahead and call for the vote.
Yes, seeing there is no opposition to the procedure, as a procedural matter, I move that we move forward with the voting for the position for James Manning for the position of chair for the remainder of this academic school year. All in favor of Mr. Manning serving as board chair for the remainder of the school year signify by raising your hand. All those opposed? We have a 5-2 vote. Mr. Manning, congratulations. You will be the chair for the remainder of the school year, and I will turn the meeting over to you, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Manning, come get your gavels.
I think I ended my chairmanship without knowing where the gavel was. So. Thank you. Thank you all very much for that support. We will now move on to item 3.2. Oh, wow, thank you. We'll move on to item 3.2, the Scba Region 8 Director nomination. If I can have a nomination from the floor.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I'd like to nominate Lindsay Agostini.
All right, we have Ms. Lindsay Agostini. Other nominations?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I'd like to nominate Amelia Mackey.
We have Ms. Mackey. Do I have any other nominations from the floor? And while we are doing the nominations, I want to remind the board that we actually have a letter already into the School Boards Association for Ms. Mackey. It was brought to our attention that in order to ensure that we followed every policy to the letter, that we needed to do this vote, which is what we're accomplishing tonight by this. So I have a nomination for Ms. Agostini, a nomination for Ms. Mackey. Do I have any other nominations from the floor?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
just a question of clarity. You stated that we already have a letter into the school board.
Correct.
So why are we taking votes?
We are voting tonight because it was brought to us by Ms. Agostini that through discussion with the School Boards Association, they stated that that the normal procedure is to do a vote. When I was chair originally, when the letter was written with support of the board, which I had, I wrote the letter, but in order to fulfill what the School Boards Association says is the best practice is to have the vote for that nominee. So we are retroactively seeking that vote. Which is why we are doing this procedure.
Are we, so is this open for discussion right now?
I mean, based off of what Dr. Davis gave us earlier, we have nominations and we'll do the vote, but I don't know that there's a place for discussion with nominations. Unless Dr. Davis, I mean, that's what we just talked about, correct?
That's correct.
So there's, I mean, at this point, I'm going to give one last call for final nominations. In order to ensure fairness, we're going to go down and we're going to vote for the first nominee that was given to us. So I have all in favor of Ms. Agostini being, I guess, giving board support for the Region 8 director to go to the School Boards Association for the final vote. If I can have everyone who is in favor, please raise your right hand.
Mr. Chair, one
Yes, ma'am.
question. Is this also for the remainder of 2021, or is this?
This is for the second, this is the School Boards Association.
Right, but is it just for the remainder of 2021?
4 years.
Oh,
4
this
years.
is for 4
This
years.
is a 4 year.
It's from 2020 to 2024.
Correct. Ms. Mackey
Oh.
served the first part of the term when Jamie Devine left that seat, and this is now for the full 4 years. Per School Boards Association, that's not our policy.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I want to make a comment, and whether it's open for discussion or not, but I found out that Ms. Mackey was nominated by reading through a South Carolina School Boards Association update or quarterly update. And from the email that we got that I shared with the board yesterday from Scott Price, it says that that Richland 2 regarding Amelia Mackey's candidacy for Region Seat 8, that includes confirmation from the chair that the board approved her as a candidate. The board did not approve her as a candidate. There has been no vote publicly about her nomination. And I just want that clear for the record, that this did not come to the board as a vote.
Ms. Agostini, thank you very much. Can I please have all who are in favor of Ms. Agostini as the nominee to raise your right hand? All opposed? Motion fails. All in favor of Ms. Mackey as the nominee, raise your right hand. All opposed? Ms. Mackey, congratulations for that, for being our nominee for Region 8. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right. And of course, there's already a letter on record, so that formalizes the procedure for that.
Thank you.
We will now move on to item 4.1, legislative discussion, which is no action requested. Dr. Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, members of the board, and to our viewing public. Each year at the School Board Association meeting in December, there are actions or resolutions that have been presented by the School Board Association to board members around the state in regard to items or legislative resolutions that they are planning to take forward. We are providing our board this year with that information ahead of time for a period of discussion to inform them of those resolutions as they are currently stated in the information you all received earlier prior to this board meeting. I did take an opportunity to review along with my team all of the legislative resolutions. With the help of the district's team, Dr. Marshall and Franklin, Dr. Harry Miley, Ms. Maria Owens, and Libby Ruth, we were able to review all of these resolutions. The team is recommending supporting, the district administration leadership team is recommending supporting all of the resolutions. And we would also like to call some to your attention in general that we think are very important for you to be aware of as you review them. The following resolutions address issues in which we as a district need to have a seat at the table when it comes to shaping legislation here in the state of South Carolina. So for your attention, for your additional attention, I bring to your attention resolution number 7, which identifies early childhood education. Resolution number 9, achievement gap, education achievement gap and graduation rates. Resolution number 13, fiscal autonomy / affairs. Resolution 16, impact fees. Resolution 17, local district fiscal impact statements. Resolution 19, local legislation. Resolution 24, which addresses retired teacher salary cap. Resolution number 30, the school start date. Resolution 33, teacher salaries. Resolution 35, tuition tax credits and vouchers. And resolution number 36, broadband expansion statewide.
All right, thank you, Dr. Davis. Board members, any other comments regarding the 2020 Delegate Assembly Handbook and the board's support of that?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, ma'am, Dr. Elkins.
just a question. Are we going to discuss each one to show our support, whether we're for it or against it? Or are we going to allow the person who we show as delegates to do this? Because I recall last time we sent Ms. Agostini as a delegate to represent the entire board, and some of us were not pleased with her decision. So how are we going to handle that?
Correct. We are not going to go through each one. Every board member has had the legislative resolutions
Right.
prior to this meeting.
Right.
My hope is that if somebody has exception to one, that we can discuss those exceptions, but we are not going to go through one by one on those.
So how would we know whether that person who's going to represent us is in favor or not in favor?
I believe that I'm going from the stance that the board is in favor unless
Okay.
there is somehow an exception to that.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, Mr. Chair,
Ms. Agostini?
yeah, I'm just going to say that, I find that this meeting has been actually just, it's almost a joke, a complete waste of time. We've got these legislative resolutions that we're having our delegate go and speak on behalf of us, yet we're not having a vote on that. How can we have our delegate responsibly represent us when there's no formal vote? I mean, we could do a block vote on these. When I had mentioned it at the beginning, I was told that'll come to us later. It can't come to us later because we would have had to have changed the agenda. But, in terms of who's nominated for the nominating committee or, the board, I disapprove of that, of the president-elect along with our director. If you if you Google both of those people, they're littered with ethics violations in the newspaper. I think that
Agostini.
South Carolina can do a
Ms.
better job.
Agostini, I would ask that the process for the nomination for the position is done. The board has approved that person. If you'd like to make some personal comments during board
Mr. Chair.
comments, that's fine. At this time, we are on the Delegate Assembly Handbook.
Okay, and included in that delegate handbook are the officers. There will be an election on the officers that the delegate will be responsible for voting for. That is true. That is part of the delegate handbook, that the delegate will be voting for the officers
Correct.
proposed. So that would be part of this discussion.
And Ms. Agostini, we're actually holding this meeting. I think you were the one, based off of the last delegate group, you asked for us to have a meeting. We're discussing these, and I think we can get a flavor for the board's support or non-support for each one of these issues as we go through this meeting tonight.
Mr. Chair, the reason why I requested this meeting, if everybody will go back to the December 10th, 2019 meeting, the majority of the board in that discussion said that we should have this meeting based upon how I voted last time. Not everybody, but the majority of the board that was there on December 10th said that we needed to have this meeting, yet nobody took the initiative to ask for this meeting. I didn't ask for it before until after the election, November 5th, simply because I didn't know whether I'd be on the board or not. If I wasn't going to be in the board, I didn't want to be involved. But when everybody was so troubled by how I voted last time, I felt it was important that we have this documented, how we all stand or feel on each position. So, that's why I asked for this meeting.
Well, Ms. Agostini, your displeasure with the meeting and the process is noted. At this time, I would like to ask if there are any exceptions that we pull those out and discuss those.
Well, a couple of items that I would like to talk about that I have highlighted are number 2, number 6, just for clarification, 25, 28, and 31.
All All right. If we can start with, ma'am? Yeah, you might have to repeat those. I'm going to start with number 2.
Number 2, and some of this is just simply.
That's not the assembly rules, right? You're talking about the actual resolutions. Sorry, I'm scrolling. Okay, thank you. All right, number 2, board member legal actions. Ms. Agostini, your exception.
No, now it's a question for clarification, and
Okay.
I don't know if anybody here is even qualified to address it, but they're talking about that a school board member believes in or the SBA believes in prohibiting a school board member from instituting in his or her capacity as a citizen, taxpayer, or a school board member any legal proceeding before any court or governmental agency opposing or challenging any votes taken by the school board of which he or she is a member. So that means that if a school board passes some illegal policy, that the other school board member cannot, do a legal proceeding. They can't sue the school board. They can't ask for an attorney general opinion. I'm looking for clarification on what that policy actually, or what that belief or resolution means.
Okay, well, first off, I would like to just reiterate that these are belief statements, that these don't create any formal governance for us as a board, for the School Boards Association, and there's no law. This is just a belief statement. This was put in place, I remember, that there was a school board in the state where one of the school board members brought individual action against the school board, and it cost the school district a considerable amount of money to defend the lawsuit. And because they were a board member, there was no recourse for the board or district against that individual board member. It created huge expense. One person blocked action for the entire board based off of that lawsuit. And so this was put in place at that time to try to prevent one single board member from prohibiting the action. But
Well, just for the record, then I'm going to put that I disagree with it, number 2.
yes, ma'am. Dr. Holmes.
Mr. Chair, I think I read in this particular section that it also refers to the fact that they put this in place because the board is not supposed to act as individuals. We're supposed to all act as a one unit body. So to sue the one unit body because your vote did not be what it wanted to be was not what they wanted to do for the board. I believe it states that in there also.
It does, correct. Are there any other board members that would consider a change to this particular resolution? Okay, without support, then we will support it as it is. Any other support? All right, which one is next, Ms. Agostini?
Number 6. And I'm not sure if I find it ironic, but the constitutional amendment and the South Carolina School Boards Association believes South Carolina Constitution should be amended to require the General Assembly to provide a high-quality system of free public schools. I'm not opposed to that. I'm not opposed to the idea. What I guess my comment to this is, when you read items number 28 and 31, they talk about the beliefs of when we can't even provide a minimally, and I don't mean we as us, just in general, when a school district is not capable of providing a minimally adequate education for their students year after year after year, we're opposed to a takeover, but yet they're asking a takeover from the General Assembly. But they're asking the General Assembly to provide a high-quality system when sometimes we're not even able to provide a minimally adequate, and then are opposed to somebody else stepping in after multiple years of failing. Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Ms.
if I could
Mackey.
provide clarification, this is actually a testament, not only by the South Carolina School Board Association, but other school districts across the state and legislatively. The Constitution of South Carolina guarantees a minimally adequate education. It's just inappropriate. What the School Board Association is trying to attempt to do in conjunction with other school boards is to change the language. The The scenarios may not always be ideal, but if the language is changed from minimally adequate in the South Carolina Constitution, then the expectation legislatively and with regard to funding will change as well. So it's a language change that the School Board Association is asking for. It doesn't mean it will happen. With the mindset change, hopefully action will follow.
Absolutely. I believe that's been discussed quite a bit in our school board association meetings.
Absolutely.
And there's definitely appears to be wide support from that amongst educators at all levels across the state.
Absolutely.
I will ask, based off Ms. Agostini's comments, is there any other support to consider a change to this resolution? Okay.
I was not looking for any change. I was just commenting on that.
Okay. All right. Which one's next, Ms. Agostini?
Number 25, and it was just a discussion on state roads in front of schools. And again, it's a question, that can be taken up with our delegate, but who knows if it's a county road or a state road, who's responsible for it in front of a school?
I can understand that comment. I think that the idea behind this is that the schools currently bear the cost of the roads, regardless of whether it's a county or state-owned road. Most likely, it is a state-owned road, since South Carolina has more state-owned roadway than just about any other state in the country. All right, so since that's a comment, which one is next?
28 and 20 and 31, and those are, comments that I've already made comment on, that I disagree with 28 and I disagree with 31, that if we've got failing school districts or a failing school and it's happening repeatedly year after year, then something needs to change. As I said, when I stood up last year at the delegate meeting, Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. We owe it to our kids to educate our kids. And if it's a district, board, superintendent failure, I do agree that after multiple years of failure, somebody else should come in and give it a try. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Ms. Agostini, were there others, or that was it?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, may I speak to that, please?
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Mack.
With regard to that item, of course, it's the South Carolina School Board Association's position, but other districts as well. Takeover, the issue with the takeover is that school districts were not being granted an opportunity to have support, to have the adequate support they needed, to have the systems in place to address the needs they have. Oftentimes, when you have a school district that's taken over, there's no support there. There's no community interest vested at the leadership. When the State Department takes over that district, you lose community and local people and resources that are vested into that school. So it's a support mechanism. Taking over, I got that that's a last resort. But I think what school districts are asking for is that they don't have equity with regard to resources and other things that cause the calamities that they incur. It's all about equity and parity. Then they're asking for help and resources, not to simply come in and be taken over without the support that they'd like to have had the first time.
Thank you, Ms. Mackey. All right, are there any other items that board members would like to have pulled out or receive clarity or further discussion? And Dr. Caution Parker, you are our representative, so you will be representing us at the meeting. We greatly appreciate your service in that role and capacity, so thank you for representing. So you will have the full 9 votes.
The full what?
Full 9 votes.
They've given us 10 this year.
10 this year. Oh,
10 this year.
Okay. All right. We moved up.
Yeah.
All right. With no further discussion, we will move on now to item 5.1. If I can have a motion for adjournment.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, ma'am, Ms. Mackey.
I move to adjourn the meeting.
Thank you very much. Do I have a second? Second. Seconded by Dr. Holmes. Is there any further discussion? With no discussion, if we can have, are y'all all right with the hand vote? Oh, it's on our computer, but hand vote. Raise your right hand. Unanimous decision. Thank you.